Hey everyone, pretty much as the title says, here I wanna explain why I love RPGs so much. I have shared bits of my story in other videos, I'll leave some links in the description in case you're interested to look at them, but I have never explained why I ended up sticking the most with this genre. Because when I was really young, I used to play plenty of different genres like platformers, horror games, first-person shooters, and even racing ones. In any case, I'll leave at the end the thing that made me come back, because it may be kinda unexpected. And it would be cool if you could also share why you love RPGs so much. And yep, my story began with Super Mario RPG and Pokemon, but it was until I played Chrono Trigger and Castlevania Symphony of the Night that this passion for RPGs started growing. As plenty of you, this is the genre where I have laughed and cried the most after looking at those amazing tales or heartbreaking moments. And that is one of the points that sold me the most, because first-person shooters, sure, had interesting stories, but I felt that there was a point where some of my cherished titles simply failed. On the other hand, RPGs tend to share fantastic stories that sometimes aren't entirely focused in action, but in philosophical and deeper topics. Needless to say how Xenogears introduced me into being introspective and analytic about multiple things in my life. Yes, it took me a while to come back to RPGs because when I was quite young, first-person shooters simply absorbed me a lot, and in a sense, for those who say that video games do not teach important things, yep, I learned English because of them, and a bunch of fellas I used to play with. Then again, coming back I noticed that story-driven games were my thing. Nope, visual novels nope. I played some point-and-click games and this masterpiece, but they weren't the same. I like to see how RPG characters ride their paths, how oftentimes they go against all odds and succeed, or the other way around too, sometimes how they may give their all, just to end up falling into a nightmare. There's been several characters that have inspired me in different ways, or those silly ones I identify with.
Remember what you taught me, Master Juva? When it matters most, be true to your heart, not your eyes or nose. Human, beast, that's not important now. I think this is one of those times that matter most. And my heart tells me to save that girl.
And let's be real, this is one of the best selling points about RPGs, as you can find relatable characters, or how some stories simply hit multiple nails in a marvelous and organic way, like how some apocalyptic situations may develop. So yeah, in general I believe RPGs take the cherry when it comes to stories. However, it is a shame how certain things nowadays cannot be shared anymore. Nonetheless, I still think there are plenty of games showing amazing stories, or at least silly ones for me to enjoy. Something I don't miss about shooters are the bosses. From all the FPS I played, a few are the ones I truly remember, as oftentimes I felt like they were kinda anticlimactic or just overhyped scenes that left with a crappy feeling at the end. This is another point why I love RPGs so much, because oftentimes bosses are simply epic, or at least final bosses oftentimes leave the best memories, as sometimes they are quite impossible to beat, so once you are able to handle that challenge, it feels simply great. And if you ask me like, hey, could you name let's say 100 bosses from RPGs? Sure, no biggies, but if you ask me that about shooters, to be completely honest, I most likely will struggle. In a sense, that is partially the reason why I talked about some quite hard bosses from Japanese first-person dungeon crawlers. I simply love them. But let's go back with the idea about coming back to RPGs, because it took me a while to readapt my senses, as going from stupidly fast-paced games to this is something I see a lot of people struggle with. However, the methodical process to achieve some objectives made me feel much more accomplished, like checking different numbers and start to analyze my chances was something that excited me a lot. And yep, this process was kinda painful when I saw one of my favorite games die, as it was a wacky combination between FPS and RPG. But this is the kind of things what I mean, having so many options at your disposal, And bringing unique and weird answers for certain problems is something that pretty much puts a plate on my table nowadays. So I'm also grateful about some of those convoluted games that go way overboard to catch certain things. By this point I believe it is easy to guess some of my favorite franchises like Fire Emblem, Shin Megami Tensei, in general, Experience Inc. games, Ethereal Odyssey, which was the main inspiration to name my channel Gaming Odyssey, and plenty of other small games from Falcom, Idea Factory, and things like that. It is worth explaining that even when I like to play convoluted things, the RPG genre is where I also chill the most, and sometimes it is relatively easy to just go with the flow. Yes, I won't deny that there are some questionable games in those lists, but sometimes I just wanna laugh at silly and dumb things. Whether people like it or not, that is partially the reason why I play plenty of Idea Factory games. They don't disappoint when it comes to read silly stories. Nonetheless, there's still a flame inside of me looking at those famous and world titles. Maybe not as fast as I would like to, but I am slowly getting there. For example, while I knew about Xenoblade Chronicles, and I played a bit the Wii version, it wasn't until last year that I really gave it a chance. After that, I also took Xenoblade Chronicles sets out of the shelf after something like 8 years, and little after got Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and 3, which I shared my opinions early this year, 2025. Now, probably the most impactful thing about RPGs in my life comes with something unexpected. Not with the stories, not with gameplay, but with music. Because since I was really young, my parents used to play, for the most part, classic and rock music. Needless to explain where you can find the combination of both, or something like the Black Sheep. Yep, neoclassic metal is something I love so much, because it combines those two worlds quite well, and it is pretty much a tradition by this point, how some franchises share unforgettable melodies. For example, this epic theme from the Trails series. And just by taking a small peek to my OST collection, it is easy to see what I like the most. I know it may be ironic, but my father also enjoys to listen to some BGMs, so from time to time I share him some tunes. In general, I could say that he enjoys Castlevania, Octopath Traveler, and Ethereal Odyssey a lot, so being able to connect with my parents in this way makes me quite grateful too. So those are the main reasons why I love RPGs so much, and I hope I can play them for much more time, to keep on reading more of those amazing stories, keep on fighting great bosses, and listening to more of those beautiful tunes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.